10 steps ahead. TGBU talk, yeah, yeah. TGBU talk, yeah, yeah. TGBU talk, yeah, yeah. TGBU talk, yeah, yeah.
All right. Have you ever noticed how, like, some phrases we use every day can sound a little off?
Yeah, like almost wrong.
Today, we're diving deep into one of those.
Oh, yeah.
It can be safe to consume. You hear it everywhere.
Right.
From food labels to medical advice.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But something about it just feels kind of strange.
It does has a certain ring to it, doesn't it? It's like a disclaimer on a science experiment almost.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, you know?
Right.
We've got this research, an academic paper that breaks down the grammar quotes from linguists.
Oh, wow.
The whole shebang. And we're going to uncover why this phrase is actually a masterpiece.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Despite how awkward it might sound.
So let's break this down. This academic paper really goes into the sentence structure. Do we need to get that granular? I mean, most of our listeners are pretty savvy about language.
Yeah, you're right. We don't want to bore anyone with a grammar lecture. But the key takeaway is this concept of conditional safety.
Okay.
That's what this phrase is all about.
Interesting.
It's not saying something is safe.
Right.
It's saying it can be safe.
Gotcha.
Which means there are other factors involved.
So like that carton of milk in the back of my fridge that's a week past its expiration date?
Exactly.
It can be safe to consume, but maybe not the best idea.
That's a perfect example. And that nuance is crucial when you're dealing with food safety expiration dates. They're often guidelines, not hard and fast rules. So you need a way to express that uncertainty.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So it can be safe to consume leaves room for interpretation.
Exactly.
Which in some cases is actually more accurate than a definitive statement.
For sure.
But that's just food, right?
Right. Yeah.
Where else does this come up?
Well, think about medical advice. Prescriptions often have those warnings, like it can be safe to take 2 tablets a day, but exceeding this dosage could be harmful.
Right.
That "can" is doing a lot of work there. It's saying that the safety of the medication depends on how you use it.
It's like the phrase itself is almost a warning.
Yeah.
To pay attention to the details.
Yes.
Don't just assume something is safe because you heard safe to consume. You need to understand the conditions.
Exactly. You got to engage your critical thinking skills.
Right.
And this is where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
We have some experts weighing in on this.
Oh, cool.
And they offer some fascinating perspectives.
I love hearing what the language gurus have to say.
Well, one expert, Dr. Abood, argues that this type of construction, the "it can be safe" structure, it's essential for scientific discussion.
Interesting.
Science is all about probabilities. Right? You can't always say something with absolute certainty, especially with complex systems.
Oh, it can be safe to consume becomes a way for scientists to acknowledge those uncertainties while still conveying important safety information.
Precisely. It allows for nuance and accuracy.
Yeah.
In a way that it is safe, just can't capture.
That's really cool. You know, it's like this seemingly awkward phrase is a really elegant solution to a communication problem in science.
And it's not just science.
Oh.
Another expert we have, Azrin Hilmi, is a poet and linguist who finds a kind of beauty in this phrase.
Wait, a poet?
Yes.
Finding beauty in "it can be safe to consume."
Yes.
No, I'm really curious.
Hilmi points out that this type of construction, with its conditional phrasing, reflects this uncertainty in life. They draw parallels to other phrases like "it can be wise to wait" or "it can be dangerous to trust blindly."
Wow.
These are all statements that acknowledge the complexities of decision-making.
It's almost like the phrase itself is a reminder that there are no guarantees in life.
Right.
We have to weigh the possibilities and make choices based on what we know.
And that, I think, is the power of this phrase.
Yeah.
It's not just about grammar.
Right.
It's about encouraging us to think critically and make good decisions.
We've gone from awkward grammar to profound life lessons in what, like 5 minutes?
I know, right?
I'm loving this deep dive already. But I know some people might be scratching their heads.
Oh, yeah.
They might be thinking, okay, I get the nuance, but why not just say it is generally safe to consume?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And in some cases, a simpler phrase might be fine.
Yeah.
But remember, "it can be safe to consume" is more precise in situations where safety is truly conditional.
Right. It's like that milk example again.
Exactly.
It is generally safe to consume milk, but that doesn't account for the milk in my fridge that's past its prime.
Right.
It can be safe to consume. Acknowledges that there are specific factors that determine whether or not something is safe.
In a given situation.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light.
Good.
But there's one thing that still bugs me about this phrase.
Okay, what's that?
To some people, it might sound redundant. Can and safe kind of seem like they're saying the same thing.
I see what you mean.
Why use both?
It does seem repetitive on the surface.
Yeah.
But if we think about it, can expresses possibility, while safe describes a state.
So they're doing different jobs in the sentence. So saying, this food is safe to consume implies absolute certainty, like this food will never harm you no matter what.
Right.
And we know that's not always true.
Exactly.
But saying, this food can be safe to consume acknowledges that safety might depend on certain conditions.
Yeah, like proper storage or preparation.
So it's not redundant, it's precise.
Exactly.
It's using both words to create the specific meaning that neither word could convey on its own.
You got it. And that precision is super important when we're talking about things that can impact our health.
This is blowing my mind. I never thought I'd be so fascinated by the phrase, it can be safe to consume.
I know, it's cool. Right.
But you've made a compelling case for its grammar and its importance in communication.
It's one of those hidden gems of language.
Yeah.
A phrase we take for granted, but that has a lot of depth to it.
Absolutely. But let's get back to the real world for a minute. How does this phrase actually play out in different contexts? We talked about food and medicine, but what about other areas where safety is a concern?
That's a great segue. Let's move beyond the theoretical and dive into some real-world applications. This is where things get really interesting because it could be safe to consume pops up in some unexpected places.
Like where? What's where?
Well, like chemical products.
Oh.
Or even environmental reports.
Interesting.
They use this type of phrasing a lot to discuss potential risks.
So like a warning label on a cleaning product might say, it can be safe to use this product on surfaces, but avoid contact with skin.
Precisely.
Okay.
And you'll see similar language in reports about environmental hazards. Like, it could be safe to swim in this lake, but only during certain times of the year.
Right.
It's all about conveying those nuances of safety that depend on certain conditions.
I'm starting to see a pattern here whenever there's uncertainty or risk involved. This phrase comes in handy. It lets experts communicate those complexities without oversimplifying things.
It's a great observation.
Thanks.
I think it speaks to the importance of language in navigating those gray areas of like risk and safety, you know?
Yeah.
We need ways to express those subtleties, and it can be safe to consume.
Let's do that. It's not just about conveying information though, right? It's also about prompting the listener to think critically about the information.
Absolutely. It's built in. It's like a reminder.
Oh, yeah.
To question assumptions and consider the context, you know.
And that's so important in today's world.
Right.
Where we're constantly bombarded with information.
We need to be careful.
Yeah, we need to be discerning.
Yeah.
Not just passively accepting everything we hear.
Right.
And this phrase, in its own way, encourages us to do that.
It encourages us to think.
So we've explored the grammar and we've looked at real-world examples and we've even touched on some pretty big ideas.
Yeah, we have.
But before we wrap up, I want to go back to those language experts you mentioned. We haven't even gotten to all their insights yet.
I'm ready. Let's hear what these brilliant minds have to say about our little phrase.
Well, one expert, Zul Naim,
Okay.
comes from a really interesting background.
Oh, yeah.
He's an actor.
An actor.
Yeah.
What does acting have to do with grammar?
Well, Naim says he sees this construction all the time in scripts. You know, lines like, it can be dangerous to go alone, or it can be advantageous to strike first.
Oh, right.
He points out how common and natural this structure is in dialogue.
Makes it drama is all about conflict and uncertainty.
Exactly.
So this phrase, even though it sounds a bit awkward,
Yeah.
it's actually quite natural in how people talk.
Yes. And it shows how versatile it is.
Uh-huh.
It can convey this really nuanced meaning in all sorts of situations.
You know, this deep dive has really changed how I see this phrase. I used to think it was clunky and unnecessary.
I know, right? It's funny how that happens.
But now I see it as this elegant tool for communicating something complex. It's great how a little analysis can reveal so much about something we see every day.
It really is. But you know, not everyone loves grammar as much as we do.
Right.
Some people might still find this phrase awkward and would rather keep things simple.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that language changes over time, you know?
Right.
As we face new challenges and complexities, we need new ways to express things.
And it can be safe to consume is a perfect example of that.
It really is.
It came about because we needed to be more precise and nuanced when we talk about safety.
It shows how powerful language is to adapt and grow as we learn more about the world.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation, and I think our listeners probably starting to see this phrase in a new light.
I hope so.
But before we let them go, I think it's time for a little challenge.
Oh, a challenge. I like it.
All right, so we've spent this whole deep dive unpacking the phrase, "It can be safe to consume."
It's been a journey.
We've talked about the grammar the real world uses, even its poetic potential.
It's more than just a phrase.
We've said that safe in this context is conditional.
Right.
But what factors do you think influence whether something is safe to consume in like a specific situation?
That's such a good question.
Right?
And it shows why this phrase is so important.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about the words. It's about making us think critically.
Right. Like, don't just take it at face value.
Exactly.
You have to dig deeper, look at the situation.
And those contextual factors, they can be so different depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if it's food, you might think about the expiration date, how it was stored, how it was prepared.
With medicine, it could be the dose, maybe interactions with other medications.
Right, your own health history.
And with environmental hazards, it could be the time of year, the weather pollution.
Exactly.
So it can be safe to consume is just the beginning.
The first step.
It's like an invitation to get more information, figure out the risks.
And then make a good decision.
And that's so crucial these days.
It is. We're overwhelmed with information constantly.
We have to sort through it all and make sense of it.
It's like we're detectives,
Oh, I like that.
looking for clues to figure out what's really safe.
And I think this deep dive has given our listeners some good tools for their detective work.
For sure, they can spot this phrase now and really understand what it means.
They can see how the grammar works, how it's used in different places, and how it makes you think.
And with all that, they can navigate this world of language a little better.
And make smart choices about their own safety.
Exactly.
Well, this has been really enlightening.
It has.
We started with what seemed like a simple phrase
I know, right?
and ended up talking about language, critical thinking, even responsibility.
It's amazing how one little phrase can spark such a huge conversation.
It really shows the power of curiosity and that thrill of discovering something new.
So, to our listener, thank you for joining us on this adventure in language.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of it can be safe to consume.
Keep those ears open.
Yeah, you heard what we said. You know we the best. You know what the deal is, cause we 10 steps ahead. TGBU talk. Yeah. Yeah.